Standard Chartered and CNBC-TV18 present India on the Move, Season 6.
Hello and a very warm welcome to Season 6 of Standard Chartered and CNBC-TV18 present India on the Move, a conversation series where we engage with thought leaders and business experts in understanding new developments in the global and local economies, trending industries and corporate spaces in India. I'm Mugdha Kalra, and today I welcome you all to this dynamic discussion on the influential forces shaping the B2B ecosystem. As we navigate this discourse, exploring the intricate interplay between business entities, innovation and financial institutions, we anticipate gaining valuable perspective that will undoubtedly steer the trajectory of B2B interactions in the years to come. Joining me on this very special discussion, Vasudevan C., co-founder NinjaCart, Pulkit Bhandari, CFO Zetwork, and Sanjeev Mehta, MD Transaction Banking, Sales India and South Asia, Standard Chartered Bank. Welcome, gentlemen, to this discussion. Let me start with you, Pulkit, and ask you about your work, which is huge in US. You're seeing manufacturing industry take an almost tectonic shift because of what is happening in the US. How do you foresee all of it in the context of India?
What's happening in the US is very interesting, and the way I look at it is that this is once in a lifetime opportunity, right? Last time something similar happened was nearly 2 to 3 decades back, when China was supplying roughly around 3.9% of global exports, which went up to 15% over 20 years. Today, India is in the same zone and space. And what we are seeing is that with this shift happening, US is more and more getting inclined towards expanding its supply chain, and India stands to basically benefit from that. One of the key factors, and if you look at the landed cost of goods in the US, and when you look at the world, and if you benchmark US as 100, and how much cost does it take to basically land goods in the US, you'll see Western Europe in the range of 105 to 120. You'll see Eastern Europe again in the range of 90 to basically 120. When you look at China, it was roughly around 90, kind of expanded to 121 with all the duties. India stands at 85, right? So that's a very interesting trend for us to basically capture on.
Right.
The way I look at India-US opportunity is that today India has people capital, it has the financial capital, it has the political capital, and more importantly, ability to kind of look at size and scale of what US needs, right? So it's a great opportunity out there. It's for us to basically lose. We at Zetwork are right up there trying to basically capitalize on this. A business which was pretty much negligible for us a couple of years back is roughly $300 million today. So we can see it, feel it, and very interesting time.
Sanjeev, how do you see the banking sector aiding this growth or seizing this opportunity, really?
This export opportunity used to be filled with documentation, right? What is the role of a bank? Bank is facilitating this cross-border trade. Standard Chartered is, just to share, has been the bank which was cross-border trade between India and England, set up by British India Company. And that's where East India Company formed this under British Charter, we got formed. And cross-border trade comes in naturally to us. But then comes huge loads of, I would say, authorized dealer responsibility imposed by Reserve Bank of India, documentation, checking, making sure that everything is in order.
Standards
and everything. Now, from what it used to be to what it is today, you just don't need even a single piece of document. Now, can we facilitate companies like Zetwork to do collection of, I would say, SMEs who are actually now, I would say, having capability to be able to export, and they can actually consolidate. And at the back of it is our rails, which is banking rails, to do cross-border transactions, which is all done through digital platforms, through technology, and there's no physical document flow happening. And that's the reason why, as what Pulkit said, is our time for India to make it happen or to lose it. And that's where the role of banks come in to facilitate this kind of cross-border payments and cross-border collections as well.
So how do you see this with Ninja Cart in focus, and how does it help you build your customer trust and expand your business? And what are some of the trends that you see coming from there that you are excited about?
I think we see it as a three core infrastructure. Infrastructure to do commerce better, where there is less information barrier between a buyer and seller of any nature in that segment, right? One. Two, access to better working capital. That's becoming very, very important today, because in large, agri is a very trading business, and then the working capital becomes very important, especially access to working capital, where industry where mistrust has been a bigger challenge in the last 75 years, right? So how do we really solve for that in a very using tech and data? And third, of course, how do we solve for the trust itself? Because today agri is a very 90% credit market, and credit is given on based on a relationship than on any objective data, right? Then how do we make the trust more objective and fungible? So I think these are three themes or trends that we see in agri today, and that's why partnering with someone like Standard Chartered sort of helps us to sort of move this forward, actually.
When we shift our conversation to where we stand vis-a-vis the China Plus One narrative, where do you see India, and what are some of the advantages? You did mention a few of them, but if you were to do a SWOT analysis, what comes to your mind first with China in play?
Let's call it India advantage. Let's call it basically the edge that probably India has over the world, right? If I were to basically give a few data points and put them in buckets, I think one of the key thing which comes out is corporate tax rate. In India, we have probably the lowest corporate tax rates when it comes to setting up new manufacturing units. It's close to 15%.
Because now we're talking cost of doing business as well.
Yeah, exactly. When you look at labor cost, the labor cost is cheapest in India. In some pockets, in some parts, I would say cheaper than China as well, right? While we lack a little bit on automation, but the core labor cost, which is roughly $50 per month minimum wage, is the lowest in the world. When you look at FDI flows, India today is second to China. We garner 4% of global FDI flows into the country, right? Which is again a great data point. More importantly, we have a large domestic consumption base, right? And a very young population. So if you were to basically cut the population now, next 5 years, next 15 years, next 25 years, we'll be the youngest country from a median age perspective for next 2 to 3 decades, which is a great data point and advantage. The other element which calls out is the massive increase in the government spending.
Yeah.
So something which used to be like a 4 trillion in 2018, in FY22, it is 10 trillion, which is big, which is very much needed in the current construct. An advantage which China had was around infrastructure and transportation and logistics. And if you see India today, in FY22, we created 120,000 kilometers of national highway, which stands out. Yeah. 70% of our railway infrastructure is electrified. 90% is a tele density, which is amazing data point again. The entire logistic cost, which used to be very high in India, it used to be around 13-14% of GDP.
Right.
We are trending towards 8%, which is where China or the world would have been. I think all this coming together is going to be that India advantage, and I would say golden age for Indian manufacturing. Yeah.
So infra is obviously facilitating this process. Where does banking come in? When you talk about the financial processes, with the B2B landscape, how do we see more tech involvement come in space in the next couple of years? Or what are some of the things that you're seeing that were advantages for other economies that India is now adopting in terms of banking, facilitating this process?
India has actually taken a lead thanks to UPI, right? We all know about it. I don't want to dwell on it, but then that was a retail digital era, which actually facilitated something that I say everything everybody wanted now. Now, the moment you as a consumer start getting into I want it now, in your businesses also, you start relooking at your processes.
Right.
You start looking at how can I make a change in my office, in my work, what I do to make it more real time. And once that, which is I would say my behavior, my discipline starts changing, every single company is going through a change. whatever business that they do. And everything coming from a batch mode, something which will happen maybe tomorrow, something which we were good with it, nothing mattered. There was no issue with it happening maybe tomorrow. But now every single person as a user, the demand is, I want it now. So that change has helped us actually look at every single industry business models evolving. And with that, of course, you can only do it if you have everything like reports coming to you real time, you have collection data happening on a real time, sales data that you're aware is happening real time. And that's where I would say the role of not only us as banks, but every single fintech plus your industry partners comes in to basically upscale their capability to be able to facilitate the real-time revolution in various processes, especially led with sales, sales data, plus also on the supply chain side. Imagine Corona time. We had a huge issue of semiconductors and then supply chains getting affected worldwide. But if you actually look at it, semiconductor was being used not at a tier 1 level, but it was being used at a tier 3, tier 4 supply chain level. But that disrupted the entire supply chains, right? Now, what has actually, after that experience, what has it led to as industry guys is, I want to know what is happening with my tier 5, tier 4 suppliers on a real-time basis so that I can prepare to ensure that those products are available and manufactured, because I don't want my factory to actually be shut. So it's all about data. It's all about data, how you can present. It's all about dashboards, how you can see. It's all about how I can actually react, because the reaction time is really squeezing. And then putting everything together, how you can facilitate that as IT, technology, digital, as bankers, how you can actually capture everything and give it back to the customer as a real-time data. And then comes in is what I would say, what is our bread and butter is financing. How you can actually have that real-time data to say, okay, yes, there's seasonality in agri products, there's seasonality in manufacturing. How I can actually capture that data to finance. Requirement could be a peak period requirement because there's Diwali sale happening, but there could be a lull period happening, maybe something else. So how you can actually balance your, all your outstandings in terms of loans, working capital loans, and do it, of course, digitally. So everything is changing. Of course, every single partner has to change and evolve with times.
When we talk about large players like you and looking at the competition and looking at the scale at which global corporations also function, what are some of the innovations that you see in this space that are likely to aid this growth?
So I think for sure technology is going to be a big part of this whole transformation and the growth at least India is going to see, and of course companies like us. Within tech, of course, aspects like AI is going to have a big impact on how we run our internal operations, also how we improve our customer experience. For example, we've started dabbling with some of this AI, tools where we've sort of seeing that there's an improvement in our forecasting, improvement in our risk management, especially in our capital side of offering, and also we've seen improvement in our supply chain efficiencies, right? So some of this, embracing some of these technology proactively would sort of give us that edge. Two, I think the sheer opportunity that we are sitting in a part of it, right? Just serving the Indian market and solving for it, and also able to sort of solve for the globe from India. I think this itself should give us or will give us that edge over some of the global corporations and sort of give us that opportunity to sort of be those billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar businesses in the decades to come. So I think that's largely it. And of course, coupled with the whole people potential in terms of what India has to offer and the kind of skilling that we are into, and then I think.
All right, we'll just take a very short break, so don't go away. When we come back, we'll discuss more on strategies in this evolving landscape. Stay tuned.
Standard Chartered and CNBC-TV18 present India on the Move, Season 6. Standard Chartered and CNBC-TV18 present India on the Move, Season 6.
Welcome back to Season 6 of Standard Chartered and CNBC-TV18 present India on the Move, a conversation series where today we are discussing B2B landscape and how it stands at the intersection of innovation, new tech platforms, banking, etc. How do you see the next few years leading up to the big 100, of course? And what are some of the opportunities that you think we are at the cusp of, and the new geographies perhaps that we need to explore, and how to sort of get around that?
I see largely three areas of the bigger opportunity where I think there's a lot of value creation that's possible. Both value creation as well as essential. I think it's essential that we also solve for that.
Right.
I think the first is how do we? I think we've been focusing on feeding our own, country so far, largely from agri standpoint. Right. Today, about our agri exports about 8% of our overall production. Now, how do we really move that up to about double digits, somewhere closer to about 20-25 the next couple of decades, right? And I think more than I think value, it's also essential to do that because we will have a surplus production. Then how do we really find our new customers for our agri produce? So I think that's going to be one big mega theme for the industry and also for Ninja Carton large. The second part is also our consumption is changing in a big way. If you look at some of our staple crops are sort of not growing as much, right? I mean, cereals, rice, wheats, 2%, 3% CAGR. Whereas high value, high nutrition products like, let's say, seafood or some of these are growing at a double digit CAGR. Now, which means it needs a very different supply chain, maybe a controlled temperature supply chain, different retailing altogether. Now, how do we really enable some of these? That's a second big theme that we see where there are a lot of value creation possibilities. Third, of course, on the production side, how do we get more and more efficient, right? While we are surplus, but we are not efficient in terms of production because our structural issues in terms of low acreage holding and stuff like that. Now, how do we get better there in terms of our yield ratios and how do we really cultivate high quality produce, etc. And these are three themes where we think I think a lot of value creation is available. But how do we really solve all of this in a very technology and data driven way? Is what I think Ninja Cart's larger focus is over this multi-decade bet.
Pulkit, MSMEs, as we know, need to be pushed. They make the foundation on which this whole dream of several trillion dollar economy is being built. MSMEs still face a lot of challenge.
Right.
You're working in an environment where you must be seeing them up close with their challenges, etc. How are you helping them in that space, and where do you see them in this global shift?
There's a huge dependence on the entire MSME network.
Correct.
If India were to basically capture this golden opportunity, I think MSMEs need to be empowered. What are we doing at Zetwork is we predominantly are a managed marketplace into contract manufacturing, right? So what we do is we work with MSMEs across the country. We bring them together on our platform and we cater to large Indian clients and global clients, predominantly in industrial and consumer segment, right? So today we are working with more than 10,000 MSMEs. What we give them is basically a layer of technology which helps them utilize their capacities in a better way, which basically creates profit pools for them. And when they become more profitable, they become more bankable as well, right? So this entire empowerment of that network, of that vendor ecosystem is something that we are enabling. What we see is this trend is going to continue and MSMEs are going to basically become more and more relevant and powerful in the next decade and so to come.
What are some of the new trends that you hope will aid this growth? And what are the challenges really? Because we know we are riding really high on the numbers. Thus far, we have beaten recession. But again, in the coming years, unless our MSMEs are also solving their financial issues, because a lot of their loans are still coming from the unorganized sector, how does banking come there to aid them?
With all the new e-commerce platforms and otherwise built both offline and online channels to say, how do I directly sell to a customer?
Correct.
Right? Now, having disrupted the supply chain, the need for financing comes in as to how do you finance a large wholesaler versus a small retailer.
Yeah.
And how do you actually get them to be organized in terms of their bookkeeping, financial accounting, plus also ensuring that their credit checks are in place to be able to discount or to be able to facilitate them with, would be able to give them loans and various other financing products that they would need. And that's what I would say when we're talking about the digital era and UPIs and collections happening more over tech platforms has actually helping banks to be able to underwrite a data.
Correct.
That data point is, in my view, very, very big, critical. A lot of fintechs have come in as financiers on retail platforms. A lot of banks have gone into financial retailers directly, already started to see as a trend. There have been, I would say, industry-specific results. Some have really thrown startling, I would say, very good results. Some, of course, have shown some challenges, but this would evolve. Retailer ecosystem for financing would evolve at a very big scale, and role of fintechs and banks or NBFCs would be seen there, visible. Similarly, on the supplier ecosystem, MSMEs were earlier largely tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 suppliers. Now they're becoming, as pulled on Zworks platform and other platforms, they're becoming tier 1 suppliers.
Yeah.
And moment they become tier 1 to a large Indian conglomerate or a global company, they need, of course, organized financing support. Plus also with Make in India happening, they have been able to now get a huge amount of product produced more in India. And those large conglomerates are depending more and more on India products rather than actually getting imports and all of that. Now that's another ecosystem which a lot of banks, even old times, I would say, used to support, because taking risk on a large conglomerate was easier. But in my view, it's not going to be limited only to large conglomerates. It's going to be across the ecosystem. Whoever buys, one would be able to take that kind of comfort on that particular guy or that company, because you would have their payment records, you will have their payment trends, have their defaulted in past, and all of that data which is available today for you to be able to underwrite that and give suppliers the money on due dates. So all about technology supporting and data supporting is where I see the role of banks and fintechs and NBFCs to take it further, to be able to get the new revolution with MSMEs being supported.
In a good place to wrap our show as well. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for all those insights and taking out time for us. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Mukta.
All right. As we navigate the intricacies of innovation, finance and industry, let these conversations serve as a catalyst for positive change, propelling us towards the B2B landscape that is dynamic, resilient and inclusive. Thank you so much for watching.
Standard Chartered and CNBC-TV18 present India on the Move, Season 6.